So this is another time that I watched a movie remotely with my partner Liz. So this is one that she's wanted me to watch for a while, and I've known about, but I've just never gotten around to. And we fired it up at the same time, and we texted each other while watching. It was new for me, and she knew it quite well, and that was Warm Bodies. I enjoyed this quite a bit. There's a lot of good thought put into this. So right off the bat, like Nicholas Hoult, he's so good. And it's funny because he has kind of a leading man look to him, but his tastes are so off kilter that you end up with characters like Nux from Mad Max Fury Road, or this. It's like I like how he is gravitating towards these slightly offbeat parts and movies. I'm digging the choices that he makes. The whole idea of he gets the narrative voice. So, he's wandering around as a basic premise. Zombie apocalypse has happened. And this is basically a young adult romance story between a zombie and a human. You think, how does that work? Well, first of all, we get right off the bat, it opens and we hear his inner thoughts. Now, he's still just shuffling going, but his thoughts are along the lines of, my posture is terrible. I should straighten up. Maybe I'd learn to talk to people better. And that contrast alone is a lot of fun. Rob Corddry's in this as well, playing another zombie. He's great. I don't know, I liked him on The Daily Show back in the day, but I haven't always dug when I've seen him in movies. But he's good. He's good here. He's a good fit. Here's what I'll say about the fact that, and I don't think this is going to be a particularly long review. It's just I liked it. It was funny and enjoyable. Cool. Go see it. If you haven't already, and rewatch it maybe if you have. So what's interesting to me to think about it in terms of the trend, which I think is done now, but the trend that was going for a while of young adult romance stories taking classic monsters and turning them into romantic leads. Obviously, Twilight was very much the big one of that, but there were things done with witches, and there was that thing Beastly. I think it was a Beauty and the Beast thing. I never watched that. But I always felt like most of those things didn't have a lot of respect for how those sorts of creatures are normally utilized. And I'm not talking about respect for the lore. It's all made up. You can make up your new stuff. But I mean, vampires are usually used to exemplify certain aspects of people, certain monstrous aspects of people, and that didn't seem to be in play in Twilight. The vampires weren't really vampires in any meaningful way. They just kind of said, oh, they're vampires. Really? And it felt like whatever changes were made to what is normally standard for creatures in settings like that was done just to basically willy-nilly for whatever made it more romantic. Whereas here, while there is some serious bending of what we would probably normally consider standard zombie lore, it feels like there's a lot more respect for how zombies are usually used and usually depicted. And so the little changes and the alterations get accounted for. They don't just happen, but there's just little moments that happen, whether it's between the zombies or through the inner monologue that we get little insights and little acknowledgments about how all of this works and how it is working as the story progresses. That it's all right, that's a little different than what I'm used to, but yeah, you're building on the foundation as opposed to just disregarding it. So I liked that as well. I'm not sure I've got all that much more to say. The performances were good. Chemistry between the leads was good. The ending was nice. The action-y scenes with with what were called the bonies or the skeletons, they were a little contrived. I don't know how necessary they were. I guess just for want of a more traditional climax is kind of why they were there. But they didn't drag the thing down. They worked well enough. I do like that they seemed pretty brittle. They were faster and more brutal than the zombies, but you could smash them with pretty much anything, which, since they were desiccated down to bones, that makes sense. It was cool with that. And just for the most part, it's, a good example of what I mean by respecting and building on the lore. Standard thing for zombies. It's not every zombie story does it, but what's a classic zombie thing? Brains. okay. They give a reason why they want brains, because they get to experience some of the memories of the person whose brains they've just eaten, and that allows them to feel human again for a minute. Like, that's just taking something standard for the lore, giving it a new explanation that feeds into this story, and that's really cool. There were just a lot of really nice little touches like that. Or, this was very cool. I knew from the get-go, like, oh god, they're gonna make a thing about how Nicholas Hoult ate the brains of this, I forget the actress's name, but his love interest's boyfriend. And she doesn't realize that, and eventually he's gonna tell her, and it's gonna cause a rift, and it's gonna be a big overblown, I didn't know. Except when she finds out, she's just kind of like, yeah, I think I knew that. Like, okay, nice. Again, it's just very well thought out. It's not amazing, it's not a mind-blowing film, but it's just really smartly put together. I've come to really respect the sort of things that, they take their premise and then they just execute it with more intelligence and more thought than is maybe even warranted by the premise. Like, there is more thought put into this than I would have thought would have gone into something like this, aimed at the demographic it was aimed at. But props to them. Writers, directors, actors, they put the work in. I dug it. Warm Bodies. You seen it? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something on down in the comments. Let's talk about it. You know all the things. Like, subscribe. There's links to my Patreon, etc., etc., etc. No pressure, though. We take it easy here. Just come on back next time you need a break.